Welcome to the She Wins podcast. I'm your host, Heather Sumlin, and today I am interviewing the Charlotte Shore. She is Mrs. Utah. She is also a personal chef. She's held several different titles in the Mrs. competition, and I'm excited to pick her brain. Charlotte, I'm so excited to have you on the show. Tell me a little bit, or tell everyone, I guess I could say, a little bit more about you, whatever you want to share.
Some of the things I always love starting with sharing with people is that I am an Enneagram 2. So if you're familiar with Enneagrams, that is the helper. And for me, that kind of just describes my entire life. The choices that I've made, the roads I've gone down, are all because I love helping others. So that's kind of shaped my entire identity. But besides that, I am a personal chef by trade. I went to culinary school, got married before that, decided I wanted to, instead of opening a restaurant, I wanted to have my own business, started with desserts, decided that wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do. So then I switched over to the personal chef side. And now I do a lot of in-home fine dining and cooking lessons. And it's so much fun because I work in a ski town. So I get a lot of celebrities, really high profile clientele. I get to work in $25 million homes, so kitchen settings in places that I would never normally get to. My husband hates it because I'll come home and say, ooh, I saw the coolest kitchen layout. And it's like, that's a $500,000 kitchen. we can't afford that. But it just provides so many cool opportunities. I'm connected to really, really amazing people. I love being a fly on the wall. I love those intimate settings. So that's kind of what I do for my job. And then I have been married 17 years. I have 3 wonderful and active children. And so if I'm not chasing after them, I am hanging out with friends, sleeping, as a mom, you can understand that. Like there's a lot of, there's a lack of sleep. But when I can, that's probably, if somebody asks me what my hobby is, I'll usually say sleep.
Oh my goodness. So how old are your kids?
So I have an 11-year-old, a newly 9-year-old. His birthday was yesterday, and then a 6-year-old. So 2 boys and a little girl.
Tell me about your pageant journey. How did you get started and what led to Mrs. Utah?
So when I was a little girl, I remember watching TV, and that was back in the 90s when Miss America was on television. And so I remember very specifically watching Miss America on the television. And a little backstory for me also is that I am adopted. I have a family of 6 children. 5 of us are adopted, and then 1 biological brother. But I just knew in my heart of hearts that if I got to be on that Miss America stage, that's how my birth parents would find me. And they would just be so proud of the individual that I had become. So fast forward, 10 more years maybe, and I kind of had forgotten a little bit about that desire. And then I learned more about the Miss America organization. And so right out of high school, I decided to compete because I said to myself, oh yeah, I forgot that was a dream I'd had, was to be on this national stage, to win Miss America. Also, it was so great because it provided scholarships. So I, at the time, played 5 instruments. I was not short on talent. And so I thought, well, I can earn scholarship dollars for having a talent, getting to serve my community, 2 things that I love so much. So I entered my first Miss America local at, I think I was 18. Yeah, so right out of high school. Didn't win. I'm a very competitive person, so it just fueled me to decide to come back the next year. So won that year, spent the year preparing for Miss Washington. So I'm from Washington State, so that's where I competed in the Miss America system. I remember making top 5 that year, and again, not winning made me just that more determined to come back because I had set this goal. I knew that I was going to be on that Miss America stage. So fast forward a few months, I competed in another local, got first runner-up, met my now husband, and decided to trade in my crown for a Mrs. title. So it was kind of hard letting go of this dream I'd had for so long, but marrying my sweetheart of now 17 years just felt like the right thing to do. And so did that. Then I found out about the married women pageant sector and thought, okay, this could be fun. So I, let's see, what did I do? I competed a year after I got married for Mrs. Washington America, so in the Mrs. America system. Didn't win that. It was a highly different experience than coming from the Miss America system. And so it was just, I don't know if culture shock is the right word for it, but I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was getting myself into because it's just so different. So didn't win that. Again, took a few years off. During the meantime, my husband and I were trying to get pregnant. Couldn't get pregnant. I struggled with infertility. And I decided that I just wanted to throw myself into service because I knew how much I loved that, how important it was, and how much I think less of myself when I'm serving others. And during that time, I discovered the international system. So the Mrs. International system, decided to compete for that. Won Mrs. Washington International and got to go to nationals for that, which was an incredible experience. A few months before going to Mrs. International, we had done a second round of in vitro, and I was able to get pregnant with my oldest child. So I went to my first national pageant 15 weeks pregnant. I didn't care what the outcome was. I was just so happy to be pregnant.
Right.
But I had an amazing experience. I made some really, really incredible friends who are still my friends to this day. That was 13 years ago, 2013. 12 years ago. And so after that, my whole focus and my whole life was dedicated and geared towards my oldest child, Judah. So for 9 years, I, threw myself into motherhood and my business. And we moved to Oklahoma in 2018. So I should probably reverse a little bit. So won Mrs. Washington 2013, got pregnant, found out my husband got a job transfer to Utah. So then we moved to Utah, and I stepped out of pageantry because I'm like, how can you do pageantry and have children at the same time? So 2013 to 2018, we lived in Utah. And then in 2018, we moved to Oklahoma. And at the time when I got new clients, I remember I would Google them because I wanted to know who they were, if they were a person of interest, if there was, some FBI's most wanted list out for them. You never know what you're getting into when you go into a stranger's home, right? So one of my clients at the time was a former Mrs. America. And so I remember just going into her home and just saying, oh my gosh, I am fangirling over you a little bit right now. Tell me about your experience. Did you enjoy it? Because a month prior, I'd also had the opportunity to watch Miss USA because it was in Tulsa, Oklahoma that year. And so I kind of had dipped my toes back in the pageantry waters and remembered why I loved that environment so much. So this former Mrs. America said, you would absolutely love it. You've got to do it. Try it. You'll love the Oklahoma director. So I made a goal of competing for Mrs. Oklahoma in 2022, won that, and then was able to go to Mrs. America in 2022. And while I was getting ready to prep, I guess it's a we, when it's a family affair, we have children and a spouse. And so as I was preparing for Mrs. America, my husband tells me, I got a job transfer. We're moving back to Utah. And I'm like, maybe I shouldn't do pageants anymore because every time I win, we move. So that was a little disheartening. But so even before I headed off to Mrs. America, I knew if this is not my year to win, that's okay because I'll have another opportunity once I move. And then while I was preparing for Mrs. America, also sometime before that, 2 years before that, a year before, I had been introduced to my birth family. And so that was really exciting. And then I remember my mom, as I'm preparing for Mrs. America, made the comment. She's like, well, Charlotte, do you remember you had that dream of competing for Miss America? And that's how your birth family would find you. And I was like, I know. And she said, well, that dream just changed a little bit because now it's being actualized with you going on to the Mrs. America stage, and my birth parents got to be in the audience. So it was, again, one of those experiences where I'm like, of course I wanted to win. I wanted to walk away with the crown, but more importantly, it was the fact that my birth parents were in the audience. And so I didn't care about anything else, really. It was just such such an impactful moment in my life and so exciting. And so that kind of set me on this journey, on this path, going back the birth family story. And so now here I am. We moved back to Utah, competed in 2024 for Mrs. Utah and was first runner up. Came back this past spring and I was fortunate enough to win the title. So now I'm preparing to head back to Mrs. America.
So what's the difference, do you think, this time heading to Mrs. America versus in 2022 for you?
For me, I think I am doing this for me and for my platform and for the things that I want to promote versus doing it to make someone else proud. I want to make myself proud. And I had an amazing experience the first time around, but just like beauty or anything else, advocacy doesn't have an expiration date. So I knew that there were things that I wanted to share at a national level, and I wanted to come back and have that opportunity to share and make myself proud, have the opportunity to share that platform. And, regardless of if anybody in the crowd is proud of me, if anybody in the crowd shows up for me, I'm just excited to do this for me this time and for the things that I've learned over the last few years that have really helped fuel like my advocacy with my platform.
So when you think back on your lifetime so far, what has been one of the defining moments that you want to talk about?
The one that comes to mind would be during the years I struggled with infertility. I just remember falling into a really, really deep despair and depression. And for anyone listening who has gone through infertility, they'll know what that's like and what I'm talking about. And it's very isolating, and it's very difficult. And it's a type of depression all on its own. And I remember just praying and praying over and over again, like, Heavenly Father, please, like, let me get pregnant. Let me have these babies. Like, I thought that's what my body was designed for. I want to do this. Why can't I get pregnant? Please let me get pregnant. And I remember after the first few years, I just had this very distinct impression from God saying, Charlotte, the Lord helps those who help themselves. And it was just this very, very moment, because I'm sitting here just trying to rely solely on my faith and on the Lord, which are amazing things and amazing tools to have, but also He has provided us with opportunities and with medication and with doctors and science and things that we can utilize to help further along things. So for me, it was, okay, well, the Lord helps those who help themselves. I cannot just sit here and just pray. This is not going to go away or not going to get better just from prayer. I need to utilize the things that He's provided on this earth. So that's when we decided to look into fertility treatments. And that's kind of really how my family got started. And that kind of has shaped a lot of how I view things, whether it's there's no room for me at the table, or this organization won't let me volunteer with them, or they're not interested in extra volunteers. So the Lord helps those who help themselves. I'm going to go and I'm going to build my own table. I'm going to find a way to make things happen.
Ooh, tell me about a table you've built.
So the most recent one for me is a chess club at my child's school.
Oh.
So my oldest child has autism, so he's on the autism spectrum, and it's very difficult to get neurodivergent children, some children in general, just who are not interested in social settings, to do anything. So we've tried jujitsu, we've tried code ninjas, we've tried fencing. He was really into fencing for a little bit, but we couldn't find anything that he just loved. But he loved chess. And so we said, okay, well, you don't need to do a sport, but you can go join a chess club. And as we searched our community, there were no youth community options for chess. So I approached the PTA and said, hey, what do you think about a chess club? And they said, well, how much is it going to cost? Who's going to head it up? Now, I know nothing about chess, Heather. I do now, but at the time, I'm like, all I know is that I love Harry Potter, and, the chess scene in Harry Potter, the wizard chess scene, is one of my favorites. But besides that, I knew nothing about chess. And so I said, but I can facilitate and I can find people who will help me with this. And luckily the school already had about 20 chess boards, something like that, 20 to 30 chess boards. So we didn't have to pay for chess boards since it was all volunteer based. The school wasn't having to pay for anything. So I facilitated the chess club. I started the chess club, and then I found volunteers who knew more about me at chess to come and volunteer weekly with me. So that was able to get kicked off in December. And I remember thinking there was going to be maybe 10 students who came. Yeah. Heather, we had 30. Consistently, there were 30 kids who would come to this chess club. Now, when the weather started getting a little bit nicer, the numbers dwindled a little bit, right, but we were still above 20. And I was just so proud of that. I just thought, oh my gosh, all I did was just ask, and I found a way to make it happen. And all my kids actually attend the chess club, and they love it. And also, I am really good at chess, and I am beating some of the sixth graders now. So I would say, I'm doing pretty good.
There you go. I don't think I've ever won at chess. I don't think I've ever won.
Well, I'll tell you, playing against like a third grader and having them be like, you don't know how to castle or you don't know what the bishop is, makes you real humble real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to learn how to play so that I could keep up with these super cute elementary school kids.
Reminds me of that TV show, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? I'm like,
Oh,
no, probably
I'm
not. Probably not. Oh my goodness. Tell me, what do you've won a lot. You've won several titles, and it looks like you're winning in life in a lot of ways, pursuing your dream. But how would you define winning for others?
Well, most recently, I think for me, what really helped solidify how I defined winning actually was, thanks to you and your dad reading with Winning in Mind and working with you a little bit. I define winning and view winning as what I learn and accomplish during the process of getting towards an end goal. And so when I sat down and thought about that a little bit more, I looked at like, well, what does that mean? Because again, you can kind of almost correlate winning with success and, how you feel about those two words. And so for me, I look at this end goal that I have, and then I look at my process and I say, am I setting, goals along the way, how I want to accomplish it? Am I staying true to my values? Am I staying aligned with who I am and what I want? Am I executing the little things, the baby steps that I need to take to get to that end goal? And if by the end I can say yes, then I feel like I have won. And in the past, that wasn't necessarily true because you say, but I put in all this hard work and I did all the things. And I realized I wasn't learning and I wasn't necessarily doing the things that I needed to along that process to feel successful, to feel like I was winning. And so, it can come back to with what do you call that? With athletics. There we go. So I played basketball and I also did track. I excelled more in track. So on a weekly basis, am I showing up to track practice? Am I doing the warm-ups? Am I doing the speed drills? Am I icing in the sports med room afterwards? Like, am I doing all these things to make sure that I stay in top physical form? So by the time I get to state, did I succeed? Did I do well? Did I feel healthy by that point? And even if I didn't win, that's okay because I did all of the steps that I needed to get to that point. With pageantry, it's did I train the way that I said I was going to? Did I, log in my performance journal? Did I make sure that I was focusing on what I needed to focus on in that moment? Not is it child time versus, pageant prep time and keeping those things separate. So this year with me winning this last title, I remember being on the stage with the top 5 and feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful. I'm so thankful. I put in all of this hard work. I feel like I won already. Any of these girls could walk away with a crown and I would have been okay with it. I would have been happy. And that was such a good feeling instead of putting this pressure on myself to have the outcome end with what I wanted it to. So like we learn in your dad's book, you train to win, but when it comes to the actual performance or the pageant, it's out of your control. So train to win. And as long as I'm doing that and happy with how I did it, then I feel like I won.
And you did win. So now we're on to the next step. And we'll see how that goes. When is Mrs. America?
It is August 27th.
Ooh.
So I'm about 2 months out.
It's coming up. Oh my goodness. If you had to go back in time and relive any experience that you've had, can you think of a time when you would want either a do-over or a do again?
Oh, that's tough.
I didn't prep you for this one.
No, that's fine. I know. I know getting asked that, it's almost like that. Do you have any regrets in your life type question? I don't think so. I don't think I would go back and redo anything necessarily because that would change the trajectory of my life and I wouldn't be where I am today. I know there's sometimes I've had the thought of maybe I shouldn't have gotten married so quickly. Maybe I should have competed for one more local and then gone back to Miss Washington. And then maybe that dream could have, came about in a way that in my head was the way it was supposed to at the time. But I probably wouldn't have the children I have now. My husband might not have decided to wait for me had I decided to do another year of pageantry. So, while there's things that I'm thankful for as learning opportunities and growth opportunities, I don't think I would go back and change anything.
Is there a time when you wish you could go back just to feel it again?
For me as a mother, I think the birth of my children, a lot of times just soaking in that.
Outside of the pain. Yeah.
Yeah. Just like feeling, yeah, without the pain, just like,
Right.
just relishing in just bringing these children earthside and just having them in my arms in those quiet moments when it's, just me and my baby. And so I don't know. I was thinking about that the other day and I'm like, oh yeah, I loved that. And I think I would love to experience that again.
When you have to soak in every moment because it goes by so fast.
It does.
So fast.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your platform. What do you advocate for as a title holder?
My platform is called No Two Brains Are the Same, celebrating neurodiversity. And what I have the privilege of advocating for is autism and ADHD, as well as other forms of neurodiversity. And so if you're not familiar with what the term neurodiversity really even means, it's just a different way of your brain being wired. It's not a bad thing. It's not a better thing. It's just a different way of being wired. And so on that spectrum, there's a lot of, I mentioned the ADHD and the autism, but there's also OCD and dyslexia. And there's one more that I can't think of the word of right now, so I don't want to butcher it. But anyways, it's like an umbrella term for these different ways that our brains are wired. And I've had the opportunity to work with autism councils, both here in Utah and in Oklahoma. And really where this platform started several years ago was when my oldest was diagnosed with autism. And his symptoms were not traditional. Like you would never look at my child and think, oh, he's autistic. I never thought that. I remember thinking he had anxiety. And so I went in and got him tested for anxiety. And he had already been diagnosed with ADHD at the time. And I remember they didn't say surprise, but it felt like a surprise. He has autism. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking like, no, he doesn't. There's no way. He doesn't do all the things that people think that an autistic child does. So how could he have autism? And it was a source of despair for a little bit because it felt very isolating. And a lot of times when you hear the word autism or autistic in our communities, you go straight to that nonverbal stimming with, the hand flapping or having to use a keyboard to communicate. You don't think of children like my Judah, who is incredibly smart and very bright. Just, he has a little bit of social awkwardness, I guess you could say, and, a little bit of, not a little bit, he's got a lot of anxiety. But because his story was not mine to tell, I remember as we were going through therapy options and figuring out what worked for him and realizing, okay, well, my other children have ADHD and I was never diagnosed as a child, but I'm 99% sure I have ADHD. I remember going to my doctor and getting tested. It's like, yep, sure enough, I have ADHD. And so I would just start posting things on social media. I love humor, so I use brevity a lot to convey messages or, get through difficult situations. And so I would post some funny memes about, ADHD or whatnot. And the amount of people that I had reach out to me in private messages saying, oh my gosh, that's me too. Or I've never told anybody this before, but I was diagnosed with autism as an adult, or I was recently just diagnosed with ADHD, and it explains so much. And I realized that I had, by keeping these stories to myself, I had unwittingly missed out on helping so many others.
Mm-hmm. And you're a helper, so you need to help.
Decided, oh, sorry, go ahead.
And I said, and you're a helper, so you need to help.
Yeah. So I realized I need to start sharing my story more because it's going to resonate with so many people. And especially the undiagnosed ADHD part, and especially being a woman, because as a child, if you heard ADD or ADHD, again, your mind jumps to that hyperactive little boy who constantly interrupts, is very impulsive, and that's not how it typically presents in women. So a lot of women have gone undiagnosed their entire lives, mm-hmm. thinking that there's something wrong with them because they have a hard time with their executive functioning, or they procrastinate, or different things where we as women have been shamed and told like, well, if you were a good woman, if you were productive, if you were this or that, then you wouldn't be doing X, Y, and Z. When in reality, it's just the way our brains are wired. And so if we learn to work with it, we can. But if you spent your entire life just feeling like something was wrong, of course you're going to think that there is something wrong with you. So over the last few years, I've been able to help people understand what the different symptoms look like in women, how to help almost hack your ADHD brain a little bit. And it's just been so rewarding to have personal people in my life come to me and say, hey, because of what you shared or how we've talked about these things, I went and got diagnosed and it turns out I have ADHD. I'm like, oh my gosh, all for me just talking about, that sounds bad, talking about me, talking about the things that I experienced and what my family and I go through now. And so it was just a very empowering feeling. And I'm like, there are more people that I need to help, more people. So that's kind of what I've made my mission.
So what's the goal as Mrs. Utah or Mrs. America? What's the goal with your No Two Brains Are the Same?
A greater understanding of what neurodivergence is, because again, there are a lot of stereotypes out there and generalities of what it looks like to have ADHD. And so that goal kind of differs depending on the age group. So I went into the schools and I started talking to elementary school aged kids about ADHD and, read about like, one of my books is right here. It's not my book, but like My Brain is a Race Car. It's a great book. And it explains a lot about how brains can, kind of just run and, how to fuel it properly. But as I'm reading it to these kindergartners, and then afterwards I ask them, like, who here has a brain that goes, super fast? And none of them raise their hand. And so I go, oh, a classroom full of neurotypicals, I guess. And the teacher's like, nope, So in kindergarten, they don't quite understand what ADHD is or what it means. So reframing my message and my school curriculum for that age group is really important, so they can just kind of understand, hey, just because you have a hard time focusing doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Let's find a way that help you. Or if you get angry quickly, here's a good way, good strategies to calm down. And as the kids get older, then we can start talking more about ADHD. But with the advancements in testing and with it becoming more in the limelight lately in the last couple of years with neurodivergence, I feel like our children are in good hands. Like my 3 kids are all neurodivergent and they all have access to therapy. They know that their ADHD makes them awesome. My oldest knows that his autism makes him awesome. Whereas as an adult, again, when I was a child, because my brain worked differently, it was always, why are you so weird? Why would you do it that way? Why can't you pay attention? And so I got all of these negative messages just thrown at me. So now as an adult, it's harder for me to accept the way that I am, or I never was able to adopt healthy coping mechanisms at a young age. So I feel, especially lately, that my main goal with adults is to help them understand and figure out, okay, do you have ADHD? And while I can't, test them, I can lead them in the right direction and then help with those healthy coping mechanisms and figuring out, where on that neurodiversity spectrum they kind of fall and what would be most helpful for them. And so a few of the things I've done for that is I've created a, is it me or is it ADHD quiz that I do. Okay. I'm working on a cooking series, thanks to you, actually.
Oh, I love this. I'm so excited.
I'll have a cooking series that will offer recipes that are not only family friendly or picky eater friendly, but it's like, hey, it contains certain vitamins and minerals and nutrients that could help aid in some of the cognitive issues that you might have. It's not going to cure autism or ADHD or get rid of symptoms, but it's just like fueling your body properly. You're going to feel better, so it can help get rid of some of those symptoms. But so those are just a few of the things that I'm doing, working with schools. And then the biggest message is just, it comes down to just being kind and understanding to others, because if I do forget something, if I do procrastinate, if I am a little impulsive, or your child is, they're not doing it to be bad. They're not doing it because it's not important. It's, again, the way their brain is wired, and they haven't learned how to work around that yet.
Do you think also that the extra screen time actually doesn't aid ADHD very well? Does it not cause it, but does it make it worse if you're on the screen all the time?
Not necessarily. So this was, as a parent who had to rely on screen time a lot to help manage. I spent a lot of years where I was just in survival mode. To hear professionals say, and, like it's written in stone, not in stone, but, things can change. But basically what I've read is that no, it does not cause hyperactivity, kind of like sugar does not actually cause hyperactivity in children. Like it spikes your blood sugar,
right.
But it's not going to cause hyperactivity, in and of itself. And so it really comes down to the child. So I have one child who, if I say, hey, you got 5 minutes left on the screens and then it's time to go, they are very good at saying, okay, it's been 5 minutes, and they will leave that screen. I have another child who is terrible at it. They just kind of melt down a little bit because, and what it actually comes down to is with neurodivergence, you have a hard time with transitions. And so going from watching screens to having to switch to a different activity, it's really, really difficult. So that's where you see the irritability a lot. It's not because of the screens necessarily, it's because you're trying to transition from one activity to the next. So it could be going even from dinner to brushing teeth. It is like pulling teeth to get my kids to go brush their teeth, or to take showers or baths. And, the amount of tantrums that we've had to deal with because of those transitions, but understanding that makes it a little bit more, it doesn't make it any easier other than when you understand you're going to have a little bit more compassion or empathy. And so you put strategies in place to help the kids, with, again, the countdowns. All right, it's 10 minutes. Now it's 5 minutes. Now it's 2 minutes. They're like, okay, we've given you these warnings. And so that their brain starts warming up and getting ready for those transitions. Yeah, like anything, those screens definitely can be bad in excess, but a lot of times, especially children on the spectrum who can't communicate verbally, all they can use is screens. So they're in front of a screen all the time. Or I recently learned, like for my kids, it helps them if they've been masking all day at school, they need to come home and they need a break and they need to get regulated again, because when you're masking and you're having so much required of you all day at school, you get so dysregulated. So my kids would come home and one of them would just be so irritable and so grumpy, but he was a sweetheart to his teachers. I'm like, where was that kid? And so it's like, okay, instead of going straight into schoolwork, you can have 30 minutes of screens because it's going to help regulate you and it's going to help you calm down your nervous system again and be in a state where you are agreeable and a little bit more compliant. So it's like, okay, now it's time to do the reading. And instead of full-blown meltdown, it's, okay, we can get there. So there are, tips and tricks, and I think screens can be a very, very helpful thing. I do limit for the most part. I try to limit, but my limit is probably still higher than the average family. But we haven't noticed anything negative other than it's the transitions more so than irritability from having eyes on a screen.
Speaking of screens, how do people follow you? Like, what's your social media handles?
Oh, my social media handle is Charlotte B, like at B as in boy, Shores. And so that is my Instagram. And then also you can just find me, Charlotte Shores, on Facebook. If you want to follow my business account, I have a chef.charlotte.shores on Instagram. It might be chef_Charlotte_Shores, but I can't remember right now. So
it's one of those.
I forget these things.
They'll find it, Chef Charlotte, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's not a lot of them out there, but you can find me on there, or you can follow me on the Mrs. Utah America Instagram page as well.
And if you want to learn more from Charlotte, join my Patreon channel. She Wins Solutions for Pageantry Patreon is there for you who are competing in pageantry. Maybe you're a parent, maybe you're a director, and we teach you more about how you can control your mind under pressure or interview tips and tricks. Awesome. I look forward to not only following you, but helping you out. I know you're on my schedule later this week. I'm so excited.
Yes, so me too.
We will get you ready for Mrs. America. Thank you so much for joining. It's been so much fun catching up with you.
Yeah, thanks, Heather.